Hi guys, the Rwanda policy is starting to look a lot like Brexit. Many of the same people who sold one are selling the other. It's extremely expensive, and whether it will work or not will require you having to wait around a while. The Chancellor Jeremy Hunt was challenged over the cost of sending people to the African nation, and he doubled down on the idea that relocating asylum seekers there is a deterrent which will save money in the long term. Incidentally, the cost of sending one asylum seeker to Rwanda could provide 234 children with an education. But of course, this isn't the Tories using their own money.
What I do want to talk to you about as well, though, is the cost of this policy, because according to the National Audit Office, the cost of sending the first 300 migrants to Rwanda is £1.8 million each. Now, just to put that in context, school funding is around £7,600 per child per year. So the cost of sending one migrant to Rwanda would give 234 children an education for a year. Is that good use of money? You're the Chancellor.
Yes, I know, and I'm very, very concerned about the cost of illegal migration and the hotels.
No. The question was, are you concerned about the cost of sending people to Rwanda, not the cost of so-called illegal migration and hotels? Millions being spent on sending a few individuals to Rwanda, when hundreds of children could receive an education instead.
That we're having to spend money, the money that's going into border security. But let's be clear, we might spend a lot of money to send some people back to Rwanda, but if that has the effect of deterring lots of people from trying to come to the UK in the first place...
We don't know whether it will or not. We don't have the numbers.
Well,
we don't know.
With respect, Sophie, we're already hearing this week that it is beginning to have a deterrent effect. I believe it will.
What do you mean a deterrent? A deterrent on people crossing the channel? It's not deterring people from crossing the channel. Actually, saying to people, if you voluntarily go to Rwanda, we'll give you £3,000 and you can stay there for 5 years with free food and board and healthcare as well. That's actually a pull factor, not a deterrent.
But you and I will be able to know the answer to that question, because when these flights start, we will see what happens to the numbers of people crossing the channel. But I believe it will have a deterrent effect. But what I would say to the Labour Party, who've been arguing for months it won't have a deterrent effect, despite what we're hearing from Ireland, well, if you're not going to do this, what are you going to do? And
process the claims. That's what the Labour Party have said they would do. They would increase the staff necessary to process the claims. Now, whether they can do that or not is another thing, but that is their plan. Have you not been listening? And if you do process the claims, you'll be able to move more and more people out of hotels and emergency accommodation, give them refugee status, and then allow them to work and rebuild their lives and do jobs that many British sectors are crying out for staff.
This is the only policy on the table. We're going to make it work. And it's interesting, isn't it, that now parties in Germany are saying they want to do this. Italy has already set up a Rwanda-style policy with Albania.
Okay, the Italian policy with Albania has been criticised by Amnesty International, and it potentially is in breach of EU law and international law. So I don't know why you're pointing out something like that. And when it comes to the Italian-Albanian agreement, well, what happens is people are processed in Albania, and then if they succeed, they return to Italy. They're moved to Italy. That's not the same as what's happening with Rwanda. If people are successful in Rwanda, what happens? They don't return to Britain, they stay in Rwanda. That's completely different.
Denmark already has a law on its statute books to allow it to do the same. So it turns out the UK is actually not such an outlier in saying that in the end, what we've got to do if we want to control migration is to deter people from wanting to come here illegally.
It's not illegal. Okay, first of all, notice he ignored the cost, that you're spending millions on sending people to Rwanda and there's nothing in return for that, when you could actually spend that money on education. But he won't do that either. Remember, as I said at the beginning of this video, they're spending other people's money. They're not spending their own money. Imagine if Rishi Sunak had to reach into his pocket. He had to ask his wife for a loan to pay for the Rwanda bill. Literally the bill. I think they'd be a bit more careful. They'd actually dump this idea. But because it's taxpayers' money, well, they're happy to spend as much as possible. And of course, once again, journalists don't ask, how are you going to pay for this? How are you able to afford £500 million for Rwanda? This is not investment. This isn't like building schools or hospitals that you actually have something to show. This is money down the drain. Once again, whenever it's about spending money for people in Britain, the question is, how are you going to pay for it? But if it's some gimmick like Rwanda, no questions asked. Why is that? Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.